Have you ever had a season where everything seemed to fall apart at once? The plans you made unraveled, the people you depended on changed, and the future you imagined suddenly disappeared. You sit there wondering, God, what's happening? I thought you had a plan for me. If that's you right now, I want you to stay till the end because even when life feels completely out of control, God's hand has never left your story. Life has a way of surprising us, sometimes in the best ways, and sometimes in ways that leave us breathless. You can plan every detail, follow every step, and still find yourself in a place you never expected. Maybe you have lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe your health took a turn, or maybe you are just tired, tired of trying to hold everything together. I know that feeling, the feeling of chaos, the feeling that you are no longer steering the wheel of your own life. But here's the truth, you never were. That's not the reason to fear, that's the reason to rest. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Notice he says, I know the plans, not you. That means even when you lose control, he never does. There is a man named Thomas who once told me his story. He had worked in a company for over a decade. Stable job, steady income, everything felt secure. But one morning, the company downsized and he lost everything overnight. He said, I felt like my world collapsed. I didn't know what to do next. I felt like God had walked away. But 6 months later, Thomas started a small side business that he had once dreamed of but never had time for. It started slow, one client, then two, but eventually grew into something bigger than he ever imagined. Looking back, he said, losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me. It wasn't the end, it was the redirection I didn't know I needed. Friend, maybe what feels like a loss is actually God's redirection for you too. Maybe what looks like chaos is just God moving pieces into place. Because sometimes He lets the plans we made fall apart so that His better plan can begin. Think about Joseph again. His brothers sold him, he was thrown into prison, forgotten by everyone, but every setback was setting up his destiny. By the time he reached the palace, Joseph could say in Genesis chapter 50 and 20, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. God didn't stop the chaos, He used it. That's the same God you serve. That's the same God who can take your confusion and turn it into clarity, your pain and turn it into purpose, your loss and turn it into legacy. And maybe right now it doesn't feel that way. Maybe you are wondering, if God has a plan, why can't I see it? Let me remind you, When you are in the middle of the story, the plot rarely makes any sense. You don't see how the broken chapters connect until the ending reveals the purpose behind every line. In Romans chapter 28, we are told, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. That includes the things you don't understand. That includes the mistakes, the delays, the unexpected turns. Sometimes we want to control everything, the timing, the outcome, the how, and the when. But God doesn't ask for control, He asks for trust. You don't have to fix everything, you just have to place everything in His hands. He's not asking you to have it all figured out. He's asking you to believe that He already does. So breathe, let go of the pressure to understand everything right now. Even when you can't see the plan, God has one. Even when you can't trace His hand, you can trust His heart. One day, you will look back at this season and realize it wasn't wasted. The tears, the waiting, the uncertainty, they were all part of His shaping process. He wasn't trying to break you, he was building something inside you that couldn't be built in calm seasons. A strong faith, a deeper peace, a trust that doesn't depend on control. Friend, if life feels out of control right now, don't give up. God still has a plan, even if you can't see it yet. He hasn't lost track of your story, He hasn't forgotten your prayers. He's just preparing you for what is next. Hold on, your story is still unfolding. And sometimes the greatest peace comes when you finally stop asking why and start trusting who. If this message spoke to your heart today, share it with someone who needs that same reminder. And before you leave, type in the comments, God is still in control. Let's fill the space with faith, even in the middle of uncertainty. If you're new here, subscribe for more weekly encouragements that remind you of God's unshakable plan for your life. Remember, you may not understand what is happening right now, but God does. And one day, you will look back and see that everything fit together perfectly, just like He promised.